Hello lovelies! I hope everybody's day is going fantastic. If you're new to the channel, I am Sunny Sagittarius and I am back today with another cool video. In this one, I'm going to be carving for my first time. Although it's another form of sculpting, I'm not going to be using clay like I did in the last one. I will still be using plaster though, only this time it'll be in a solid brick. The first thing I have to do after taping all the openings shut on my box is Vaseline the inside of it so the plaster doesn't stick to it. Here's the little area we're going to be using to pour our plaster, but first we have to mix it, and we use these giant bags here in the corner. A crucial step to ensuring that your carving block doesn't have any air pockets in it in the future is shaking out all the air bubbles while you mix the plaster. That's mine right there. Okay, it's the next day and this is the block of plaster that I'm going to be carving out of. As you can see, I drew out all my guidelines so I can finally start carving for the first time. You can tell I'm a novice because I held the mallet wrong when I began and my professor had to teach me the right way. Thanks, Mr. G. Although my forearms were a little tired in the beginning, it went by a lot quicker than I expected it to. Although I have guidelines, I don't want to go all the way to them so I don't accidentally chip off too much, because you can always take more away, but it's way harder to put more back. But since class is almost over, I'm going to see you guys tomorrow for the other side. Also, just as a tidbit, it didn't actually take me only 3 days to get to this point. In reality, it took me a lot longer since I only have this class 2 days a week. I'd often find myself coming in after school to finish parts of the project that I wasn't able to finish during the class. Now that I have those carved down, I have to do this yet again on the protruding sides that are touching the edge of my base. But first, I have to draw out my guidelines again. I'm going to be cutting off my sides right here to make a smaller rectangular prism, and I know that it looks like my guidelines aren't lining up. I spoke to my professor about it and he said since I won't be carving down to those lines all the way, it doesn't really matter. So it's the end of day 3 and I figured I'd show you guys what my station looks like at the end of each carving session. Gets pretty messy. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, so today's objective is for me to round out the edges of my rectangle shape to make it more into a cylinder for the body of my can. To be completely honest with you, this was my least favorite part of the project because of how tedious it was, and I ended up over-carving towards the base of my can, which resulted in me having to add more plaster towards the end of the project. So now that I'm getting pretty close to my guideline, it's time for me to switch from my bevel to a rasp so I can shave down the plaster to the desired diameter that I need it to be. Okay, so this is the diameter that I'm going to need my piece to be at, and tomorrow I'm going to come back in and shave down the rest of the sides so it's all even. Alright lovelies, it's day 5 and we're halfway through the project. If you've made it this far, comment down below what your favorite arts and crafts project was as a kid. Also, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to join the sunny side of life. Alright, now that I've rasped down all the sides pretty evenly, it's time for me to start the first level, which will be the bottom of my valve cup. It's that little dome shape you see on the top of spray paint cans. Now that I'm done with the diameter of my valve cup, it's time for me to go on to my mounting cup diameter. For those of you who are wondering what the mounting cup is, it's this little piece right here on the can. Not gonna lie, this part took a little bit longer than I expected it to, so I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow to finish this up. It's day 6, and it's finally starting to look like a spray paint can. The next step I have is to start filing down the sharp corners of my valve cup so it can start getting that dome shape that we want. And just as a refresher, this is the valve cup. Alright, it's the next day and I'm filing down my valve cup. This was the most exciting part of the project for me because it pulled the piece together and made it look like a real spray paint can. I ended up coming into the studio after school that day because I couldn't help but finish my valve cup. I was too excited to see what that dome shape would look like, and it turned out really well. Alright guys, we finally have the form of my can all finished. Now it's time for me to start adding the details to the spray paint valve. Before I carve the hole in my valve, I'm smoothing down the sides of my can since I'm going to need to add more plaster in the future. Okay, now that I have my nozzle finished, it's time for me to start filling in all those little air pockets that are in my piece. After I'm done patching these holes, I have to wait for the plaster to set, so I'll see you guys tomorrow to start the base. Before I can start carving in the brick design I want, I have to flatten down the top of my base and start measuring out all the little brick pieces. I figured I'd skip over the carving portion of my base and go straight to plaster patching. Here's what my patched up base looks like. I have to now wait for my plaster to set again so I can carve in the last few details. Then we're done. Now I'm putting the finishing touches on my piece by smoothing out any rough edges that may have been left behind. Okay lovelies, we're finally at the end of the project and I wanted to show you what my brick base looked like. I added some grooves into each of the bricks to create texture. Thank you all for supporting me, both old and new viewers. I hope that you all have a great rest of your day, and if you want to see any more videos like this, don't be afraid to comment down below. Goodbye!